It is Friday, July 12th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. As always, welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the video. Appearing live here at 6 p.m. Central Time, hosted here out of my home in Hudson, Wisconsin. I got a tiny office in my upstairs loft. And so the intent of the show is to encourage dialogue, to try to get us where we at least have mutual understanding of each other, which is vitally important because, hey, the laws, they belong to all of us and they govern all of us. So we better write good ones, and the best ones are going to be written and the best policies executed if we at least come to understanding the different views on the different topics. So I often go through 5 different websites. They are, I call them information sources, not news, because news is just the who, the what, the where, and the when, and that can be described in 30 minutes or so in live television. So the networks that came to exist, that are 24-hour news networks, like CNN and Fox News, for example, they can't possibly fill it with news. So what do? Instead, they fill it with commentary, prognostication, and bias, because they're trying to get clicks or viewership. And so they're out there to try to entertain as opposed to just provide the news. So I'm encouraging everyone to understand the who, the what, the where, and the when. Try to leave all that other dialogue and stuff, commentary out, and make your own decisions on what you think the facts mean to you and to the nation. So today, looking at the news, and it occurs to me that I should talk about immigration and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So those are going to be the 2 subjects for today's 15 minutes. So going through these, it's interesting, again, to compare the different information streams and see how they're treating certain topics. So on Huffington Post, there's a headline. I'll turn this around so you can see it, and then I'll take it back and read it here. It says, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib blast Trump over border in emotional testimony. So they gave testimony before their colleagues, actually, in the House of Representatives, because they had gone down 2 or 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and they'd actually toured some of these facilities. And since then, there's been this back and forth, citing different sources, some of them claiming that there's no mistreatment and no lack of resources whatsoever. Today, I saw, not in these information streams, but on television, that some of the Republican members of Congress and Senate were down touring these facilities today, and no Democrats went with them. So that was this ongoing back and forth, which I have some updates, because one of the things I'm encouraging people to do is to do some investigation on your own, to dig into this some, right? So we figure out just what's what. So Huffington Post has that headline. Interestingly enough, I've gone through the CNN website multiple times, and at least at the moment, and for the last hour or so, I cannot find any coverage at all of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her testimony before Congress and this border immigration stuff. So that I can't find it. So NPR, which generally has less of the jingle journalism, I call it, so less of the emotional jingle kind of stuff in their headlines. Their headline, and I guess I'll show it to you again. So there it is. So they're covering, and they don't even mention Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They just say, the headline reads, "Shaken to my core, testimony describes conditions for detained migrants. A lawyer, lawmakers, and the acting Homeland Security Inspector General spoke to members of the House Oversight Committee on Friday about what they have seen and heard on the southern border." Okay? So, again, none of this attention-grabbing capital words or exclamation points and all the other kinds of things that some of these websites and then, of course, the commentators on some of the networks offer up, which is a good thing. Now here I want to point something out. So this is Fox News. So Fox News now generally tends to be more conservative. So Huffington Post and CNN have a tendency to be more liberal. Fox News has a tendency to be more conservative, and on their front page, underneath a picture of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there is the title, "Complete Fraud," in quotes, and pasted right underneath her picture. So, and in this one, it talks about she tears into Trump for the border crisis. She's saying, and there seems to be some truth to it, that our policies in Guatemala and Honduras and stuff are affecting this. They're causing people to want to run from these towns. And then, of course, the border stuff along the way is our choices about how we retain people, how we review them for whether we can let them into the country, at least momentarily or whatever. This is all choices by the administration through various choices and even executive orders in many cases. But anyway, let's go back to that comment about complete fraud. So this is in now there is some infighting in the Democratic Party, and there's the kind of the old staid leadership, and that's has the face of Nancy Pelosi, and then there's a handful of these new freshman representatives, and Ocasio-Cortez is one of the most famous of those. And so there's a little bit of tension in there because the freshmen are coming in and saying all this, we're going too slow, we need to go faster. And of course, the old guard are saying we need to go slower. But in any case, so what is Fox News? Well, this complete fraud comment comes from a senior Democrat source. Now, this could be a senior Democrat, as in a voter, someone that they know or have known, the owner of a delicatessen in New York. They call this guy and they say, you've been a member of the Democratic Party for 40 years, right? Yes, I have. What do you think about AOC? Oh, she's a complete fraud. There it is. And that's exactly, they don't say, a senior Democratic member of Congress or the Senate or anything like that, or the party, like a senior party leader. They just say a senior Democrat source. Well, you can find anybody to say anything, and there they are. But, the truth is that there is definitely some back and forth within the party over some of these things about, not being aggressive enough. Okay. So again, again, what is the truth? Who, what, where, and when? And then I go to Breitbart, which is, again, another conservative website generally, and they have this picture of her and the headline. And it says, Ocasio-Cortez swears herself in at the Capitol and repeats the toilet drinking claims. So in this article, they are happy to talk about the fact that she didn't have to be sworn in, and so she actually asked to be sworn in, and the head of the hearing said, well, you don't have to, and she said, I want to be, and that caused a little bit of confusion while they got that to take place. But basically the reason why she wanted to do that was because she wanted to emphasize the sincerity of what she was going to say. She didn't want people to say, well, you didn't say this under oath. How do we know you're not lying? So she intentionally took an oath so that it was sworn testimony, because there's been a lot of people, again, arguing over what is or is not the conditions in these immigration border holding facilities. And so I looked into this, and I read some articles that appear in some of the Texas newspapers and various other sources, and as you might expect, actually the I'm gonna adjust this just a little bit here on the Facebook side. Okay, so as you might expect, there's actually variation. Surprise, surprise. There is variation in how these facilities behave day to day, and also across facilities. And as you might imagine, if they get a huge influx of people claiming asylum, there can be kind of chaos, and the resources are overwhelmed. Well, this is no different. Anybody that's ever been in a restaurant, maybe you've been traveling across country and you're sitting in a restaurant, or maybe getting ready to order in a restaurant, and a busload of tourists or kids in a band or whatever, they come into the same restaurant, and well, guess what happens? The restaurant facilities are overwhelmed, right? The bathrooms are super busy, and the people waiting tables or taking orders or whatever, this is, there's lines and waiting and stuff that doesn't normally occur. Well, because the resources are overwhelmed. So then a restaurant that has good performance normally, a bus pulls in and suddenly things are not very good anymore. You talk about cleanliness and service and all that kind of stuff. Well, and then you know that if you've gone to multiple restaurants in the same chain or whatever, they're not the same. So you can go into one, and the floors will be spotless, and the service quick, and all this other stuff, and go into another one in some other part of the country, and supposedly going to get the same service, but you don't. Okay, and even the food can vary, okay, from location to location. I'm using the restaurant analogy so that you understand that these facilities definitely have variation day to day or moment to moment, and across the facilities down there on the border with Mexico. So the truth is that sometimes, if you are going to a particular facility, things might look just fine. And then at other times, you go to the same facility, and basically atrocities occur as far as the care of some of these people, especially people focus on the children, but really they can be overwhelmed. And then some facilities are run much better, and in fact, in the articles that I read, some article or some facilities are generally, less supportive of these refugees than others. Okay, and again, the direct analogy is the restaurants if you're traveling across the country. So the bottom line is that things can be very bad, and but not always. And so this always or never kind of thing, needs to go away. I say never say never, never say always, right? And then the other part is that, excuse me, there is kind of minimal standards that we need to expect. And clearly some of these facilities are not meeting those standards at some time. So at some facilities, it's a much bigger problem. It happens more frequently. Other facilities, it's a less problem and happens less frequently, or maybe even never at one or two of these facilities on the border. But the reality is that, the combination of all the policies that we have in regard to immigration, they're failing us as citizens of this country, and they're failing these people that are, trying to come across our borders and enter the country legally. And so we need to work on that and fix it. So there's been a kind of a short-term thing where they approved a spending bill for like $5 billion, and I'm sure that will help. But again, we need to stand back and look at this thing holistically and look at what's going on in Honduras and Guatemala and so on, and see what we can do there. We need to talk to the Mexican government and a lot, and then also talk to the states along the border and the citizens there, and understand what we can and cannot do with flexibility with the facilities along the border. And it's a combination of all those things that's actually going to find us a long-term solution. Okay. So anyway, again, pointing out, where some of this bias comes in, and it's unfortunate. It's, someone looking at one of these information streams, and if you're not looking at others, you could easily fall prey to the attempts by some of these people to coerce you into believing things that aren't totally true. Okay, the pro and the con, hence the name of the show. Good and bad, for and against, they're all true. It's all part of the complexity of these issues. They are too complex to put in a few words on a bumper sticker. It takes time, hours, sometimes days, to fully understand the complexities of these things. All right? All right, so Michael James Ott, this is the Pro and Con Show for Friday. Thank God it's Friday, July 12th, 2019. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll look at some of the old shows here on Facebook or on Ott in 2020 on YouTube, the Ott in 2020 channel. And until I make another one, which will be tomorrow, I bid you adieu. Bye for now.